and invited Republicans to join in supporting his proposal aimed at protecting benefits and improving the program. A new analysis of government data conducted by the Washington Post found that the crisis economy has created some of the strongest incentives to retire in modern history. At the same time, many of those who are retiring are also waiting to claim their benefits to ensure bigger monthly checks. An analysis of the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics found that the number of workers who applied Social Security benefits in the 12 months ending in September declined 5% from the same period the prior year. That's a big drop. Now, there's some shocking news. Republican leaders have proposed a brand new relief program. This legislation would allocate billions of dollars towards a fourth round of stimulus checks. Now, these payments will be worth around $3,000. And now there is a new proposal that was announced by Senate Republican lawmakers. It will revive the child tax credit. It will be increasing the full credit from $2,000 to $4,200. And the program, however, would fall short compared to the 2021 child tax credit under the American Rescue Plan, which gave the same credit for children in both low and higher income families. The Senate proposal, everybody, would only give the full credit to families earning at least $10,000. And while the Senate plan would fill and lift an estimated 2.6 million children above the poverty line, families with low and moderate incomes would have to pay more than half the cost of the credit expansion. The Senate plan is a new iteration of the old program previously pushed by Democrats for expansion. Now it comes from Mitt Romney, Richard Burr, and Steve Daines of Montana. And this week, Democrats took the big steps towards actually passing the slimmed-down version of the nearly $2 trillion plan that Joe Manchin initially opposed last year. Chuck Schumer has just asked a Senate parliamentarian to review a proposed agreement that aims to reduce the cost of prescriptions by allowing Medicare to negotiate prices directly. And now, this is a long-sought Democratic priority that Senator Manchin supports. That is one major component of a deal Schumer and Manchin have been discussing that would include hundreds of billions of dollars to combat climate change. And the good news is that the source familiar with the talks say that the deal could be ready for votes on the Senate floor very soon. They've described the development as a major progress toward enacting a big chunk of President Biden's program before the elections. And with no Republican support, Democrats need a parliamentarian to determine whether the proposal can qualify for the process known as reconciliation, which would avoid an unexpected filibuster and allow a bill to pass with a simple majority. A second Democratic aide told reporters that the deal would probably take several weeks. It is really great that we are actually seeing Congress take action on Biden's social spending bill. And I know many Americans have been waiting for lawmakers to move forward with this. Schumer,
for your service and for being here today. Speaking of horrible statistics, this country is 38th out of 41 industrialized countries in the world in terms of the scale of our childhood poverty. The poorest people living in the United States are our children, and for one brief shining moment, for 6 months, thanks to your efforts and the efforts of your employees at Treasury, we expanded the child tax credit based on the bill that I wrote with Senator Brown, cut childhood poverty in this country almost in half, benefited 90% of the kids in this country, reduced hunger in the United States by 25%. It's hard to think of anything, Mr. Chairman, that we've done here in generations that has made more of a difference for working families. And tragically, we let it expire. Now, there were people on the front end of this who said, this is a terrible idea, it's going to disincentivize people from working, and people are going to use the money, for all kinds of illicit purposes. I can tell you, Madam Secretary, people spent the money in Colorado on their kids, and the list is long, from school supplies to lessons on instruments to back-to-school clothing. But the one thing everybody has in common, when I asked them what their experience was with the enhanced child tax credit, it is the amount of stress that it relieved from their family. Because after all, people in Colorado live in the same economy that this entire country lives in. It's an economy that for 50 years has worked really well for the top 10% of Americans, and it hasn't worked for anybody else. Washington's response over that period of time has actually been to make worse our income inequality by cutting taxes to the tune of about $8 trillion since 2001. Almost all the benefit of that went to the wealthiest people in the country. It made our deficits worse, it made our income inequality worse. It's staggering that is what we would do. And finally did something for working people. The enhanced child tax credit and the enhanced earned income tax credit. And at the end of the year, we turned our backs on the poor children in America that benefited from this, the 90% of kids that had the benefit of this. I've been here year after year after year, Madam Secretary, at midnight on New Year's Eve or on Christmas Eve, when we didn't have any trouble extending tax cuts for the wealthiest people in this country. We didn't have any trouble extending tax cuts for the biggest corporations in America. But when we had actually lifted kids out of poverty, when all the studies that I have seen, and this is what I'm going to ask you about, Madam Secretary, all the studies that I have seen have demonstrated that the tax credit worked as it was intended and did not disincentivize anybody from working. We cut it off at a time of rising inflation. Families were getting $450 on average a month. And my understanding is that the inflation has caused about $300 a month of additional costs for a family. That was more than covered by the tax credit. So in the last minute and a half, Madam Secretary, let me say, first of all, how grateful I am for your effort and for the IRS's effort and for the employees that work for you, the heroic effort that they put in place to build a system to demonstrate that we do not have to accept these rates of childhood poverty as a permanent feature of our economy or a permanent feature of our democracy. And that was thanks to the work that your folks did. So I'd love to hear your reflections as an economist and a policymaker on the effects of the expanded monthly child tax credit on children and families, and what is your sort of general reaction to all of this?
Senator, you've spoken eloquently about the benefits of the child tax credit. I completely agree with your comments. It cut childhood poverty dramatically. It enabled families to get a little bit of breathing room and to help their kids afford nutritious food and clothing and back-to-school supplies. And it really played a critical role. I think you know that the president has repeatedly said that he strongly supports extension. We would love to see Congress enact that. It's made a huge difference to inequality. It was a very important initiative. I feel very proud. I appreciate your comments. I feel very proud of the work that Treasury, and particularly the IRS, was able to do to get this money out and to do everything we possibly could to ensure that non-filers, all the many households who weren't required to file tax returns, to make sure that they receive the credit as well. I would love to see, and we've been talking about investments in the IRS